All right, we've got an extraordinary clip here we want to share with you from MSNBC. A lot of elite conversation right now about, like, we want Joe Biden to drop out, or at the very least, he should switch out the ticket and put somebody else in there for Kamala Harris, which, by the way, is not happening. But nevertheless, host Jonathan Capehart over there at MSNBC asked if really there was something else going on here with the criticism of Kamala Harris, not the fact that she has extraordinarily low approval rating and is an even worse candidate than Joe Biden for the general election. No, there must be something else going on here. Take a listen to his explanation.
To your point, the criticisms of the vice president have been coming at her since she was picked by Joe Biden to be his running mate. My question is, are they doing it not because they think she's incompetent, but because they know her potential and they're afraid of her?
Well, I think, because the vice president is in a historic role, a lot of times you have a political press that is, frankly, white and male, and that is used to covering politicians that don't look like Vice President Harris. And so this is leadership that is kind of hard for them to necessarily understand. This is not, the vice president's role is not something that traditionally we have paid a lot of attention to. And yet, because she is somebody that is doing this for the first time as somebody who is a Black woman, that does draw increased scrutiny, I think, to the role. And frankly, even, Black voters have told me they wanted to see more of her. They wanted to see what she was doing, no matter what that was. And so I think you've increasingly seen her showing up and doing the job. She's been more visible. You've seen her kind of honing her message. And so I think that is drawing more attention to her, especially as we head into 2024.
I think her response there is funny because even she can't be like, yeah, that's totally it.
She just pulls out the race card instead because obviously that's always.
But it was a tacit admission of like, no, I don't think that's the problem. I don't think the issue is that they're like actually secretly afraid of her. I don't think that's it.
We have the data. She's the least popular vice president in modern history, more so than Dan Quayle. That actually takes skill. Yeah, my guess is it's not because she's Black. I think she's a terrible politician. It's very simple. Especially because we know that if you want to just play it purely on race, all of that would have applied to Barack Hussein Obama whenever he was the president of the United States. He got reelected, folks. Sorry. Especially also, we're talking about Democratic voters, too, who don't want her to run, and they prefer Joe Biden. So it's facetious and ridiculous on its face, the entire criticism. But it is also the most ridiculous excuse to say, oh, it's because they are afraid of her. No, she is not talented. I mean, it's not just us who are saying that. The Democratic leadership themselves won't even endorse her. We played that clip of Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if you saw this, Krystal. Immediately after that, Jamie Raskin was asked 3 separate times on MSNBC, will you support Vice President Harris for vice president? He's like, well, that's what the president's decision is. He's like, no. Do you think this is a good choice? He's like, well, this is the president has
Remember, Elizabeth
decided.
Warren said something similar.
Elizabeth Warren said something. These people aren't dumb. I mean, and also there's a thing in Washington where if you can say it and get away with it, then you have no power. Like if she had any power here and political power or even electoral power, her chief of staff calls up that chief and be like, who the do you think you are? Like talking this way, you're going to issue a public apology and all of that right now. And if they have any juice, they will whenever you step out of line. So that the fact that everyone can get away with it and then Gavin Newsom can upstage her consistently and then, again, not face any real pushback in the actual coalition where it matters only shows us once again that she has such limited power as a result of her own lack of skill. She's got nobody to blame but herself, for making a fool out of herself for the last couple of years.
So Gavin actually just did an interview. I was looking for the specific quote where he was asked directly about Kamala Harris. And he was on the talking points. He was absolutely, she's the best. Yes. And he was also asked about Biden's age. And he's like, I want a seasoned pro in there. He's on the talking points, man. He knows exactly what he's doing in all of this. Because he also is like, wants to make sure that they don't continue. Well, he actually loves these articles that are like, oh, actually, Gavin Newsom is angling for 2024 for a future presidential run, but he can't give any sort of actual nod to that because it will endanger his political position within the Democratic Party. So he was on the messaging, for what it's worth. But yeah, lots of Democratic politicians, including Nancy Pelosi, fellow Californian, who cannot just come out and say, yes, I think Kamala Harris would be a great president and is the best person to be vice president, because it's difficult to argue that. And I also would just remind, Kamala Harris was in the Democratic primary last time around. She didn't do well. She didn't do well with any type of voter, no matter what demographic you looked at. She didn't do well. She had to drop out before the voting even, began in her home state because there was so much concern about how she would fare. Her approval rating is lower, consistently lower than Biden's. She fares in terms of head-to-head matchup. She consistently fares more poorly against Trump or any other Republican than Joe Biden does. So I don't think the issue is that they're actually secretly afraid of her.
Yeah, that's right. They are not
throwing that out there.
It's also not the press's fault that you're bad at your job. But of course, that's a very convenient explanation.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.